subscriber arrives, it fills you with determination.
Hello and welcome everyone to another fantastic Sunday here on the Exploding Dice channel. My name is Askren and I am your host and just one of many Dungeon Masters because as you guys can see we have a pretty packed house today. Thank you guys for joining us though. Welcome to another episode excuse me, of the DM's table where I am about to die. Apparently. I don't know why my chat isn't working, but I have Ankbot. Before we dive into things, we have a couple of announcements, a couple of things to go over, but let's say hello to our panel for the day. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
Hello. Pick some blowout.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, Twitch chat has been broken. I didn't know that.
I've been having issues with Twitch chat.
Fair enough. I've got
Ankbot.
Ankbot. I can still see you guys. We have a fantastic panel and hopefully a lot of cool topics that we're going to be discussing today. It's from a lot of different perspectives. Of course, if this is your first time here, welcome. This is the DM's table where a bunch of your favorite Twitch dungeon masters get together and just kind of shoot the breeze, help each other become better dungeon masters, and hopefully you guys as well. So make sure you guys keep your questions and topics, bring them with you, and we will try and get to them during the second half of the show. First of all, though, I want to open things up by thanking the Rob Father for joining with the subscription. Thank you, my friend. I will raise a drink to you. It is 4 o'clock. That means it's all right to drink. So if you guys would love to raise you can raise an ED cheer or an Explode 3 cheer if you're already subscribed in chat. And thank our newest minion. Thank you, my friend. And other than that, I want to give a big shout out to everyone who has followed. I can't. I'm not gonna name drop anyone because it's been too many people. But you guys have been joining us via the the giveaway and the stream. So if this is your first time here and you have not gotten involved, we're doing a monthly giveaway right now for some Pathfinder stuff. Of course, if you're following here and on Twitter, you're already entered, so go ahead and go claim them. And the other thing is, I dropped the live tweet out, so guys, if you have not already, go check that out. Here is the link. Dice Thulu will have it for you in just a second, so you can retweet and tell all your friends that you're hanging out with us and we're having a good time. That's going to be all my ramblings, so why don't we go around in a circle and have our panelists introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about who they are, and as always, tell us a little bit about where you come from, your sort of experience, your credentials, as it were. And I'm going to start right below me with someone who is new to the Exploding Dice channel, Mr. Grant. How is it going, my friend?
I'm moving and grooving, my friend. My name is Grant Ellis. I've been involved in role-playing games since 1993. I have been a special guest at conventions since about 2009, AwesomeCon, Tidewater Comic-Con, Gen Con. I've been GexCon. I've hosted D&D panels at these conventions and have run open play events, not for Wizards of the Coast, but I organize my own and have helped develop and cultivate a cult following. I run a show called D&D Open Mic Night, where I bring random people from random Discord channels and we playtest adventures that I write for publication. And I'm currently a dungeon master on Encounter Roleplay on Will Jones' channel known as Encounter Roleplay, where we've been running some of the adventures that are a little closer to publication. And that is essentially who and what I am.
Fantastic. Well, good to have you here for the first time, my friend. Hopefully some great discussion to bring to the table. Next to him, of course, returning for the panel, we have Mr. Eric Vulgaris. How is it going, my dude?
Hey, Asgard. Good to see everybody. Yeah, hi, I'm Eric. I'm Eric Vulgaris on the Twitter, Twitches, and YouTubes. I'm a game designer and streamer and stuff like that. My emphasis has always been on a diversity of indie role-playing game systems. Currently, I've streamed over 80 different role-playing games, in various different systems for different varied of times. So I have a large breadth of different things, and I kind of focus also on teaching people games. Not as cool as Grant's open mic nights and things like that for playtesting things that I am writing, but I do get to do the super fun, if you want to ever play these super fun indie role-playing game one-shot things, I do a game called Once Upon a Game, where you can come over and hang out and play a one-shot of a kind of a really weird, really interesting story game things that really kind of push the boundaries of what is rules for a game and stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's kind of like being a game hippie. So that's what I am. I'm a game hippie.
Why is your channel not the game hippie?
Because I don't know. That's a good question. Because I suck at branding.
Man. Branding.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic to have you back, Eric.
Yeah.
Next, of course, we have another newcomer to the stream, just Mr. Alex.
Hey, how's it going, guys? My name's Alex, but you can find me here on Twitch at zippy_zippo. I am a cast member over on Encounter Roleplay. I will be playing in Grant's new campaign that is happening to Wednesdays at 3:30 p.m. Central. And I do a lot of stuff on Henley's channel, where I play Torchbearer with Mr. Vulgaris here. I am rather new to the DM scene, as in, like, I just don't have the cojones to do it. But I am here in the in the player's mindset, as well as I've directed several shows of theater and whatnot, and that's my background. So
fantastic. Well, good to have you here, my friend. And next to him, of course, returning once more is Mr. Johnny. How is it going, my dude?
It is going very good. I feel a little weird after hearing Grant's laundry list of awesome things that he's done, and I'm just like, well, about the only thing that I have to add, it's like I started playing in 1987. I mean, go back a little bit farther. No, GM for 6 and 20, run a variety streaming and tabletop stuff on my channel. Currently, we just finished the second season of 6 and 20, which is our shared little world that we do between myself on my channel, Not So Speedrun's channel, and then Unmade Gaming in Blades in the Dark. And that was quite a crazy affair this week, especially since we just lost somebody. So I'm actually hoping to talk a little bit about that tonight because I've got a question for the table about the circumstances around that. But anyways, yeah, so you can, otherwise I play a bunch of tabletop outside of the streaming world, and I'm looking to do more and more on Twitch itself, or actually streaming in general. So,
well, good stuff. We have an awesome panel here today. Hopefully lots and lots of different viewpoints and different topics. Of course, you guys know me. My name is Askren. I am the host here on Exploding Dice, where I either run or produce all of the content that you see. My credentials are not as impressive. I started playing D&D when I was 13, so let's see, 89, so about, I don't know what year that was. I guess that was like it was like 2000, 2003, 2004, something like that. And I was at summer camp, and my friend brought me a book of D20 Modern, and it was the worst thing I've ever played, but I didn't have any reference point back then except for all the computer role-playing games that I'd been introduced to. And then slowly after that, I got into 3.5, 4th edition around college, and then I took a break for a while, and then with the advent of Roll20, I got back into the Dungeon Master seat, started DMing 4th edition and Pathfinder, and then I started streaming a couple years after that, and I've been doing this, streaming games and D&D and Pathfinder and other things for like, I don't know, the last 2 years now. And I've been a DM pretty much the whole time. So, you know, we all have different backgrounds, and that is very, very good. So we're gonna dive into. We all brought topics that we're gonna talk about. Now we're gonna keep things kind of loose and free form. We're not gonna stick to any particular schedule as far as making sure we get through all of these. But I will kind of drop these topics into the water and see who wants to pick at them for a little while. Of course, you guys, if you're hanging out with us in chat, remember to keep your questions and topics. We'll take those in the second half of the show. Once again, if you guys have not already, go ahead and hit that retweet link, tell everyone to join, and of course, make sure to hit that follow button if you're enjoying the show, or the subscribe button if you really, really want to support content on this channel. So,
What's up? Can I jump in and ask a question real quick?
Sure, absolutely, go for it.
Sure.
Because so when we started last week, we talked a little bit about things that happened during our week, and I want to talk about something that happened during one of the shows for 6 and 20 this week, and get a kind of a gauge, because it was the first time I'd had this happen at a table, especially doing the streaming, doing the streaming part of the portion of the sharing experience. And we had somebody leave our show this week, and it was a pretty emotional moment. And I'm wondering, how the rest of the table has experienced that or dealt with it, because for all of us, I mean, a lot of us were actually kind of in tears about losing this particular player. And if anybody knows Louise from Wander podcast or Encounter Roleplay, it was a momentous event. I mean, we were all feeling it around the table, and we had this almost 20-minute long just exit scene for her, and everybody was just really into it, including chat, including the viewers. So it was on good terms, right? Oh no, absolutely.
Okay, so
it was just one of those emotional experiences where you're losing somebody, an integral part of the story and an integral player in the game. So
I've never written a character out of the story in a way that like I had enough time to prepare something big and interesting for it, because I feel like it's kind of rare that you get a chance to actually do that, right? When most of the time when players leave a group, it's sort of a very sudden thing. Either it's, it's because their life shifted very, very radically and they just kind of, I can't make it next week or any other week. And then you just kind of have to roll with it. So I feel like when you get a chance to actually write it into the narrative and everyone knows that it's happening, and then so your players can physically have that time to essentially display their feelings on the subject, I think that's kind of the best possible situation you can hope for.
Yeah,
So
we had a couple weeks where we knew that she was going to be leaving, and it was a scheduling thing. So
yeah, I know. Speedy told me about it.
It was just it was a fantastic opportunity. Yeah.
So okay, you knew that the player was going to be leaving. I'm just making sure that I understand all the facts. I'm wearing my Georgetown Law hoodie, so which I don't have a law degree. You had to give me a sweater.
No, I actually committed murder for it.
Objection.
Overruled.
Should I expect to cross-examine the witness?
Yeah. So you knew she was leaving. You made it, and it was a part of the show that she was leaving, and her character exited the story, and both her player exited. I think in those situations, I've thought about before. I've talked about with people. Character suicide's kind of an issue too, where someone has come to me, they're like, I absolutely hate my gnome artificer and I want them dead. I'm going, well, let's talk about all the reasons why you hate them. And then we have several weeks and I go, okay, in 3 weeks, we're going to be in the Forge of the Fire Giants. You're going to have the opportunity for a dramatic scene because most of the games I run, the game is what we play at the table. The story is what everyone tells afterwards. But I make sure there's a lot of dramatic opportunities and there is something of a plot that the characters or the players have created themselves. So I let them know there's going to come a time and I'm going to say the following phrase. That's your chance to go out in a way that we kind of discuss. I asked them, well, how do you want it to end for this character? Do you want it to be where you go out in a blaze of glory? Do you want to retire from adventuring? Do you want to be called off to someplace else? Is there any opportunity that you'll be coming back? Do we want to? So what I try to do is get enough of the facts, find out the reasons why, and then sometimes, I think Askren said it. It just happens, right? So you don't have the opportunity to plan. It's just they're done. So I think you just sort of prepare yourself emotionally and. To quote Jolly R. Blackburn from Kinzer-Co., the game must go on. So the game must go on. And then adapt in the absence of that player's presence. And be excited about the opportunities for new directions for the story to go into, as well as supportive if they want to come back. Enjoy the time you had together to play a game and look forward to the day when you get to game again.
Yeah, so for example, I have this group that I've been playing with on Fridays for about 3 years now, and we had one of the players who's been with me the entire time. And the reason we started Curse of the Crimson Throne about 1.5 years, maybe a little bit more at this point. No, it was definitely more at this point. 92 sessions ago, basically, plus a couple weeks off. The reason we started that campaign was because we were playing Rise of the Runelords, and he had a very sudden life change, and he couldn't play with us. And we were like, well, he is a friend. He's a character that we consider important to this party and important to this story. So we don't want to play this campaign without him. We want to kind of give him an opportunity to be here, if we during the campaign. So we decided to pick up and play something else and table our other campaign. And it happened that about the middle of Crimson Throne, he was able to come back, right, as a character, and it was great because the event was actually really, really cool because it got like me and him actually were, like I said, we had some time. Like you had some time to plan, we had some time to plan, and we actually organized an event where someone was like sitting in and observing the game, but they didn't know that it was him until like his character actually got revealed. He unfortunately he had to stop playing later on, but it's just one of those things where I think you guys also did it at your season finale, which is probably the most appropriate time to do it. It's you essentially had the best of all possible variables here, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at is absent a few of those things, it could have just been a really, okay, well, this is awkward, but we still have to soldier on and play and finish, the series and the show.
Yeah, what's interesting is that this was the best possible circumstance. And Grant, you were referring to the idea that a character wanted to suicide. We actually had somebody express interest in doing that on one of the other shows, and we had a long conversation about that circumstance, about that, whether that made sense, whether it made sense to the story. And so it's been a real learning, a real growth week in respect to learning how to cope with those situations, especially when, I essentially have 14 players across 3 tables. It's a crazy affair. So getting all of that to work together, but this was the best possible circumstance. And I can't say it enough. We were all just incredibly emotional. Again, there were tears at the table, and it was the best possible experience. It's just crazy.
Speaking about that, one of the things I like to do, as Johnny kind of kicked us off, for those of you who are new here to the show, one of the things I really like to do as a dungeon master that helps me sort of, I think, grow and evaluate is I like to ask other people, like, so let's talk about your last session. Is there anything that you guys tried or experimented with for the first time last session, or is there anything that went either really, really right or really, really wrong at your session? Grant and Alex, you guys are kind of new to the show, so why don't we start with you guys?
Okay, the last session I ran, I did try something new. I wanted to use an initiative variant that I came up with sort of on the fly after reading 13th Age, the Greyhawk Initiative variant, and playing some older RPGs such as the Fantasy Trip. Mm-hmm. And since we're running on stream, I didn't want to go through the tedious task of having 8 or 9 different initiative rolls, getting them all in order. And normally I just keep a notepad and I do it quickly, but I explained the players are in 3 different groups. There's the faraway group, the nearby group, and the NPC allies. Just one of you roll a 1d4, lows go first. You and the engaged group, the nearby group, you roll a 1d8. I'm going to roll a d10 for the NPCs, and I'm doing 2 rolls for the bad guys, one on a d20, one on a d6. And then you all can go on that initiative count, and you can put together combos. You can do it almost felt like Chrono Trigger. It felt like they were doing triple text and double text in these smaller groups. Since there was a lot of players. The players seemed to enjoy it. They said dealing with less numbers seemed to keep things moving speedily. They felt they got to be a little more tactical as well as strategic in the combat. And they felt it flowed faster. With that said, there was still some swings. They didn't always get to go first in initiative. And also, for those that haven't played in one of my games, I always run deadly combats, what would be considered a deadly combat, and usually one that has a couple of surprises that I try to catch the players with off guard. In this particular one, they're fighting Ettins in a cave, and there were dark mantle attached to the ceilings. The dark mantles dropped onto players' heads and cast darkness, so they were all blinded and deaf and dumb and having their heads crushed. But it went really well doing the initiative variant for the players. Running Theater of the Mind combat is something I'm still getting used to, largely from running games online. When I play in person, it's always with minis and a map and a grid, more of an abstract grid because I'm not playing a board game. But those are a couple things that I tried differently just from reading other books, other rule systems, and trying to find a way to make the game a little more fun for the players.
So I'm here in in like a player's mind. And something I did last week at my local shop is I rolled a wild magic sorcerer from D&D. I love wild magic. I love the RNG of it, but the one thing I don't like, but I understand, is how sometimes people for like DMs forget that they have a wild magic sorcerer in the party. So they forget to call wild magic surges, which is one of the like core mechanics of being a wild magic sorcerer. If we can all agree on that. So what I did was, okay, I'm going to use player rolls. If I roll critical successes or critical fails while trying to do like cast a magic spell, that will trigger a wild magic surge. And I was trying to think of what other things could influence triggering wild magic surges that would take a lot of the work off of the DM trying to remember, hey, we have a wild magic sorcerer in our midst. What can we do to kind of like play into that? So I was trying to think of like a bunch of prerequisites of, okay, if this happens, this will trigger a wild magic surge, and that would add a little bit more randomness because these sorcerers are ticking time bombs. So I guess what are y'all's thoughts?
I have never used wild magic in my games. I've honestly never even had anyone ask to be a wild magic sorcerer. It's just never a system that I've engaged with in all my time playing 5th edition. It just never came up.
I will say that wild magic sorcerers are because of people who sit down and say, I want to play a wild magic sorcerer, and there are some DMs who've never really come across wild magic sorcerers, that they forget about it. So the people who play the wild magic sorcerer is like, well, I don't want to play wild magic sorcerer because I don't use half of my kit because nobody remembers that I'm a wild magic sorcerer.
I think a lot of that also relies on you stepping up and kind of poking the GM or the DM until he gets into the rhythm or she gets into the rhythm of bringing that up at the table. I think it's an important part of that conversation, that when you're playing such a particular a particular nuance of something, that's an important element, is engaging to make sure that happens.
And I will say that I've been one to not, if I don't know the GM, like I know Eric and I know Grant, so I know what they would say yes to and what they would say no to. So I could poke Eric or Grant and say, hey, I'm a wild magic sorcerer. I would a surge come in here, or we would have some kind of code word like, is this an appropriate time? And they would say yay or nay or whatever. But playing with new DMs, I feel kind of weird about that because I don't know their style. I don't want to be like, hey, I'm a wild magic sorcerer. You want to give me a wild magic surge? And then be like,
is there, so help me out, because I'm failing to remember some of the minutia of a wild magic character, but there are like, you have special abilities that trigger wild magic surge,
they
right?
They do. Let me hold on. Wild magic. It's under the sorcerer on Roll 20.
What I'm getting to is that perhaps for us who are not familiar so much with the wild magic though, but like a very relevant analogy, this could be like, my DM is failing at acknowledging a very significant part of my character, and I don't know how to talk to them about it. Like, I'm a warlock and I have a patron, and my GM does not include my patron at all.
Yeah.
Or I'm a cleric and my god and doing quests, or I'm a paladin and I've never had to do a quest in my entire life.
Right. In my head, it would definitely be a thing of so I discuss those things with players beforehand, but it's a question of, is it the DM forgetting or is it the player forgetting? Because if it's the player, if the player is remembering that he has those abilities, like and it's just like, there's nothing wrong with saying like, hey man, I got this thing on my sheet, and you never bring it up, right? Yeah. You don't have to do that in the middle of a game, obviously.
Oh yeah, no. Pull them off to the side, or write them a little message, send them a text if you're at an actual table.
Right.
You know.
But if for example it's and like Eric said, you know, I guess wild magic might be classed in the same way that like a warlock patron is, something that if it's not something that you're interested in, it becomes a thing that it becomes easy to forget. And if, for example, the player is like, if the DM is bringing it up and the player seems kind of reticent, like, I don't want to deal with my patron right now, then you might be like, hey, maybe this isn't the character that you want to play. Like, maybe we should talk about what you actually want to play.
Yeah. And that kind of leads back to what Johnny and Grant were talking about characters that they want to suicide because they don't like their character.
I actually wanted to jump in there on that in a similar vein, because I've had players do that, and one of the things that I always try to do is I sit down and say, okay, what about this particular character are you not enjoying, and what exactly can we do? Like, because I, as a DM, I'm a fan of not just throwing characters out and introducing a new one, because story-wise, it just becomes very difficult. Like, sometimes your players don't care, but as a DM, I tend to. In my head,
it ruins your flow. You know,
so one of the things I always ask is, okay, what can we do to make it so, you know, we don't have to introduce a brand new character to the story and then have the rest of the party buy into it? Because the thing that's important to remember is, like, it's not just your, like, the character that you're playing. Like, the rest of the party has, depending on how long they've been playing, has potentially made bonds with this part of the narrative, your character and the way you play it, and whether that means sometimes there might be a compromise, saying like, hey, okay, you're not liking the class, maybe we can keep the character but slightly change the class or your abilities, or, you know, this or that, you know, to something that you do want to play, unless you say, well, the thing I want to play is completely different, and then okay.
Can we agree that the wrong answer is to say stick it out and be
right. So
screw your fun for the story.
Right. Well,
do we agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wrong thing is to say, well, you know, these are the choices you've made, so now we're gonna stick with them. I think the right choice is saying like, well, what can we do to increase your enjoyment of the character, right? To get you involved in this without having to potentially uproot everyone else's experience.
Because that is really what we are doing here on like a tabletop game. Is it's a collaborative experience. So, you know, if one person's not having fun, well, how can we make it fun? I've had plenty of characters that were a really good idea, but by the end of it, they've just changed so much. They aren't the character that I wanted to play, but how do I stick it out, but not really in that kind of a harsh word? How do I continue with that character? And my mindset is find what you liked about him. You know, example, I was doing Mouse Guard on Henley's channel. Graham Weatherfields was my character. He was supposed to be this ranger, basic. You know, he goes beyond the border wall. He does missions. He comes back. All of a sudden, halfway through the campaign, he turned Batman. He turned literally into Batman, going after this secret organization that like just screwed with him. And as a player, I'm like, well, I have to continue this character because this is his motivation. And I'm like, I'm not really liking the way that he's interacting with people, to the point where he goes out solo to go fight the leader of this organization, and it gets down to like 1 HP each, and it comes down to that fateful roll, and I fail. So Graham dies, but it's like, I was like, I'm not really enjoying Graham anymore. But then I was like, okay, well, how do I not make myself, but why did I start playing Graham in the first place? And I think it was because like he was kind of like against the tide, you know, and I enjoyed that about him.
I like Mouse Guard as a built-in way, and I don't. This may be a DM, like this may not be a thing that your DM didn't bring it up. I don't know who your DM was, but was it Eric?
It was Eric Pastrami.
Because I know what Eric does a lot when we play is he asks about, you know, whether we want to or whether we are changing our beliefs and stuff.
Oh no, yeah, he's really good at that, you know. And
I vexed the heck out of you all.
and I've always been changing my beliefs and stuff. It's just it's not a DM or other players thing. It's just me as a player. I look at Graham and I'm like, this isn't the character that I created because of what happened. And it's like, I don't like this character anymore, but I have to play it because I want to see what happens at the end. You know?
I don't know, Doc. I look in the mirror and I don't like what's staring back at me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like here he started out being this fun-loving, wise ass, oh, that's an owl over there. Don't worry about it. Oh, the owl
trying to flirt with the lady at the library.
Oh yeah,
into becoming literally Batman. Yeah,
and it's interesting. If I can jump in for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
As we talk about the character evolving, back when it was my job to budget and schedule movies, we used to say, if the character doesn't change from the beginning of the scene to the end of the scene, we're cutting that scene from the movie. If there's no change or there's no growth or they don't in some way, depending on whose scene it is. So we're like, we don't need this. We're just throwing it out.
Can I build on that with something? And because I wanted to talk with the topic that I had written down on the sheet to talk about today was Session 0 stuff, mostly because I'm getting back into the Session 0 with a new campaign coming up. And one of the things I really, really like to do when I sit down with my players for a Session 0 is, so we know that when a player comes to us with a character concept, they may have a sheet built for level 1, but they in their head already have an image of what that character looks like at level 20, right? They know where they want that character to end up. They have, he wants to he wants to start his own wizard college, or he wants to overthrow or take vengeance on the person who whatever. They have an arc in their mind. And so sometimes players don't even know, they don't even realize that they've created one. So I always make sure to ask what the player's mind, their character arc looks like, right? Yeah. Tell me where you think your character is going to end up at level 20. And then, and it's important because that arc that's in their mind, that's where they start. That defines their beliefs, it defines their priorities, and that defines their goals. What I like to do is I like to come back later on at level 5, at level 10, whatever, and ask the player, okay, a campaign is made up of events that you can't predict and you can't really you prepare yourself for, but they do affect your character. Things happen, you have to adjust, you have to make calls. Have your beliefs and priorities shifted that by this point in the campaign? Do you still want the same things? Do you still see your character headed to the same place as they were when we started?
So I do a lot of offline tabletop RPGs in real life with a bunch of people from my old theater department when I was going to university. And when they create new characters, we all sit down as players and GMs, and we kind of do it like we do if we were analyzing a script for our characters. Is the one thing that the director will always ask you is, what does your character want? Either what does he want in this scene? What is his overall want? And then then the next question is, how are you going to obtain that? If the Minotaur that I want to play on Wednesday in Grant's campaign wants to be the most feared warlord of all the Minotaurs ever, kill a Fell Beyonder, which is like a giant horror, with his bare hands and get recognition and glory to where he is worshipped as an ancestor god, how is he going to do that? What is his goal? But now as a character, what do you want? How do you think you're going to go about getting there? And I think that's what I really like about Session 0 is because you can say my character wants this in the end, and then you as a DM can be like, okay, if that's what he wants, how am I going to help him get there? Or it's whatever.
You picked the wrong campaign, buddy. Sorry, no.
No, Eric looked like he wanted to say something, or he wanted to kind of snap at me.
No, I'm not trying to. No. I just had to bring up this is the essence of drama, right? That is the very essence of drama. After Grant brought it up, is that I have a character and they're trying to do something, and in order to do that thing they want to do, they must change in a way that lets them able to achieve that thing. Like, isn't that what all drama is?
Oh yeah, and that's
Right?
why that's why I definitely stuck it out with Graham. It's like
Yes.
it was just, you know,
But
it,
Here's the thing, though. I think, and this is true of a lot of movies and a lot of stories, what the character wants at the end of the story is not necessarily what they start out insisting that they want, right?
oh yeah, no, yeah, and that's
So there is
beautiful.
There is like Grant said, there, you know, it's about the how does the character change, but but I think the players might
Isn't
not
that-
even. What's up?
that's every 3 wish from a genie story.
Mhm. I
Yes.
wish I had
Right.
$1 million, and then he gives you 1,000,000 deer, and then now you got to figure out what you want to do with that deer.
Every 3 wish genie story ends the exact same way, with the third wish being, I wish that I never asked for those other 2 wishes.
Really?
Every single one of them.
Because I'm pretty sure
That's
there's
not
some
how
that
I
don't
did.
end that way.
And that's
No,
why,
hold on. Because my third wish is always, I wish that the genie forgets how to count.
Mine are just never PG.
Yeah.
Well, so you guys are talking about this in an interesting vacuum, though, right?
Mhm.
Because you're talking about characters, you're talking about character creation, and you're talking about characters being defined by their wants from start to end, and that's talking about the character individually, right?
Yeah.
Or you're talking about a character in a story who is a predefined set of events where there is a
Mhm.
beginning, middle, and end clearly defined, and somebody has already thought about that process. At the end of the day, there is a very clear, or maybe it's befuddled or it's a little murky, but at some point it becomes clear what they want through every scene. Maybe you don't find out until it's scene 15 that what they've always wanted, or what the shift in their perspective has been this, evolution path, right? And that's the great part about storytelling.
Mhm.
The challenge here is, and I think that the wonderful thing about Session Zeros is that it takes it out of that vacuum, because you have that conversation among the other players.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, everybody's motivations and everybody's wants are on the table, and the DM is able to step up and say, okay, I'm going to try to do my best to help you in this situation, but I've also got to accommodate these people as well.
Oh yeah.
And that's the important element here, is that those wild card variables are the 3 other or 4 other or 5 other players at the table.
Well, I think there's also another interesting layer, because it's not like I believe that it's not necessarily the DM's job just to see the player's story that they want to see, through to the end, right? Yes, our job is to kind of help them through a story arc, but and the other players at the table, but we're also supposed to provide an some kind of plot that binds things together, and that should directly challenge what the players want to do, right?
Yeah.
It's important, I think, if there is a big bad guy in your world, that the players at some point have to kind of make the choice of seeking their own desires or being a hero. Maybe you can replace those 2 things with whatever happens to be going on in your world, but that's the kind of growth, and that's why I like talking to players, like revisiting these things and talking about it, because that's when you can sit down and you can frame, okay, where is your character now?
This also, I just also want to add to that, this works on a fractal basis. So you don't even have to think about your general character's arc. This works between characters, session to session too. Like, this is what a bond is between characters, right? I play so many games that basically boil down to, during character creation, it's like you make a character and then you go, and the game asks you, okay, to the character, so you player character, what is the thing that you want from the player on your left, and why, and that player, why can't this person have it? Right? And like, all of a sudden, that's like most drama.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah. Drama is fueled by conflict. If there's no conflict, it just gets stale.
Yeah.
I've never done Eric's method, but one of the things that I always do with new campaigns is I tell the players, aside from what the things that we're going to talk about, your character arc, your beliefs, your priorities, whatever. What I like players doing is I tell them to create one secret that their character has, that their character will do everything they can to prevent from getting out. with the understanding between us as players that the secret will come out over the course of the story, right? Because the interest and the drama comes in them fighting to keep something secret, but the drama and I think the character progression comes in, when and how those things are finally revealed. I like those little aspects. They've helped me a lot.
The secret, the overarching want of the character, even if you know that this character wants the Necronomicon, he wants to be able to control the dead, and it's going to take him. It's going to be a struggle for him to get it, but that's interesting to watch how that character tries to get what he wants. But also asking what the character wants, and yes, wants change from game to game. Yeah, that's very, very true. But asking what your character wants can also help the DM think of let's say you didn't prepare. Not saying that people don't prepare, but stuff happens. Stuff happens, and you don't have your material for that session, and you're like, crap, I need to sit down and do a session. Well, what did this character want? Okay, well, let's see if we can do a session about that right quick, and then it's great filler.
So we kind of touched on my topic, but I don't want to spend forever on this because we have some stuff some other people wanted to talk about. Grant, you had written down you wanted to talk specifically about leveling in 5th edition,
and we've had a few conversations online, and I'm starting to view your guiding principles as almost a...
Oh, you're talking about the experience thing?
Yeah, well, I'm starting to view yours as a martial arts / Boy Scout approach. When you think about... You know how you said you want to make sure that they feel their powers, right? And yeah. I trained in jiu-jitsu for a long time, and there's a lot of different philosophies in getting a belt advancement. I interviewed Royce Gracie, who won the first UFC tournament in about 2001, and it's like, well, how old were you when you got your black belt? He was like, 17, but Dad was a little tough on handing out belts. He wanted to make sure we knew the art before he gave us, the stratification. And Hickson Gracie, who I think is like 54 now, he just got one rank in red belt this year, and he's been a legend of that family for a long time. And you were talking about the importance of making sure that they felt their powers and then that it happened at a worthy moment. Maybe there was a demonstration, which has caused me just today to start rethinking of maybe perhaps there's some specific triggers that I want to check off or make sure that they've demonstrated certain aspects of their characters. Shameless plug, no, not a plug. Xanathar's came out and they talk about using a checklist system where, okay, if an adventure is designed to be 2 hours long, that adventure will earn you 2 checkpoints. And between level 1 and 4 checkpoints will advance you to the next level. 5 and beyond, 8 to 12 checkpoints will advance you to the next level. But I was starting to think of yours almost as this martial arts sensei approach. Because I do it fairly session-based, but I run a pretty dramatic, challenging game. And I just try to find key points where I'm like, the players have demonstrated core competencies across these things. They've fought many very difficult battles. They've solved very challenging puzzles. They've survived deadly death traps. Now feels like a good time to reward them with a level up. But I'm interested in how other people think about it as well. Because I've done all sorts of ways. I've done straight XP. I've done milestones. I've done session based.
Just to fill out a little bit about what Grant was talking about, we had had an exchange briefly on Twitter fairly recently where he was either he or someone else was talking about experience points. Specific, I think it was Mike Shea was talking about experience, and I had mentioned that I use a method of milestone leveling, which, you know, I used to track experience points very, very closely. But the first time I ran Curse, this was basically what happened. Is the first time I ran Curse of the Crimson Throne, my players, I was giving out experience for every single thing they killed based on the challenge rating, right, as per the book, and keeping it a list. And they went into a dungeon, and there's a fairly long dungeon at the end of the second book. And they went in there at level 6, and about halfway through the dungeon, they hit level 7 because of the things that they had killed, because they were already, you know, a little bit through the level. And then the second, but because I was saying you have to actually have a long rest to get your level up, they didn't have a long rest. They were in the middle of a dungeon, so they finished the dungeon with enough experience to get to level 8. So they'd essentially skipped level 7. And I'm like, this is just way too fast. This doesn't make any sense to me. I don't like how this feels. And so I switched over to Milestone. And the way I described it to Grant was, I like to make enough sessions in between each level that when a player hits a new level, they get a new ability, class ability, or extra attack, or something cool at each level. I like them to have enough time to actually make use, feel that in play, right? Feel how that extra attack changes the weight of and the speed and the the lethality of combat, or how their access to a new tier of spell allows them to do new things, right? Enough fights and enough time to let them feel like their level, and also anticipate and make plans for the next one. But I also like to make sure they don't just get their level up by, you know, okay, you killed a bunch of mooks, it's time to level up. Like, I like to make it when it actually feels like they've done something, or they've changed the face of the story, or they've fought a big enough enemy that makes it feel like they really earned their next level.
When the action comes to a climax, yeah.
My one of my favorite experience gain systems out there is this little ditty called Blades in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why I love their experience gain system is that it's a checklist at the end of the game. You know, if you played Burning Wheel or those types of games, it's very similar. But basically, it starts off being like, so every player has a character trigger, because it's like you're a specialist in a crew, right? And so if you do the cool thing that you're supposed to do, for example, if you are a slide, if you are a fast talking son of a gun, if you accomplish something through fast talking and something like that, mark experience is what it says, right? I'm sure VSC knows it better than I do what exactly the trigger is, but it's something like that, right? If you're the bruiser guy, if you solve your problems through violence, mark experience, mm-hmm. right? If you solve your thing through technical planning and scheming, mark experience. If you're the mastermind, right? Like that kind of stuff. And then the next thing after that is mark experience if you played up your beliefs, instincts, heritages, or drives. Like something about your character comes in here, and mark experience for that. Then the last one is like mark experience if your trauma, or if your vices, the things that your flaws came into play, right? And then there's also an option to be like, if it was exceptional in one of those categories, also mark 2 experience instead of 1. And so like every time in a session, it's like, these are the things you should be gunning for, player. So rather it just being like a show up every 2 sessions and I get a new thing, or rather than it being like I have to kill these things to get to my quota to get the new power, it's like every session feels like I'm where I'm supposed to be, and in order to get that extra new thing, which I can like, it basically has a skill tree kind of system where you get experience. You could either mark it to get a new type of like new perk, like a new spell, mm-hmm. or like improve your strength or whatever like that, right? And so it could do any of those things. But like the point is that how I spend that is not as important and fun as being like getting those points. And how I get those points is like explicit at the end of each session. This is what you tell you, this is what you need to do. And every player knows what they are, because most of them are the same except for that one fictional trigger based on your playbook that you chose. And so it's like every session, I know what I'm supposed to gun for, and I am trying to aim for that.
See,
and it's fun.
The way I do my D&D and Pathfinder that I kind of described to Grant, was sort of how I had figured how I'd kind of evolved to do things via Pathfinder and its leveling, and D&D and its leveling system, because that was the only game I was playing at the time, right? But since then I've sort of branched out. Like I started playing Mouse Guard. I don't play Blades of the Dark, but I have the book and I've watched enough Blades of the Dark to understand how it works. And those games have those systems at the end where sort of D&D doesn't inherently reward you for, like, you have a belief section on your sheet, but there's no inherent reward or imperative for the player to do that, to carry that out. And
I want to hear more about these milestone goal things. So do you know anything about that, Askren? Because that sounds like that might be able to marry some of that together.
So here's the thing is, like, I like both ways, but it was one of those things that I had, like, because I had learned about those things, that, like, okay, at the end of the session, like, let's not just dole out experience points based on what you killed, but let's sit down and talk about how much of your character's personality and traits and drives and personal story did you play in this session? Did you shoot for? And I like those as ways of keeping the players focused on essentially playing their character and seeking their own goals, right? So those are things that I would love to find some time to develop and marry into the D&D system. As for the milestones and stuff, it's always nebulous, and the reason it's nebulous is because I never want players to feel like they know when they're gonna level up, right? I don't like that predictability in it. I like them to sort of just essentially chase the thing that they have to get done, or the thing that they have decided to do, because it's a part of their story, and their story will involve them getting more powerful, but they don't really have the ability to essentially plan for that. And again, maybe that's just me, maybe I'm the only one who likes doing it that way, but and it could be like so for example, my play in Crimson Throne, my players are in the middle of the desert, and there are a bunch of things that they need to do to get honored among the Shoanti people, the sort of native barbarian tribes. As they were traveling from one tribe to the other, they caught another tribe, a man that they had met from another tribe who was heading south because some members of his tribe were sieging this fort, and they just stopped reporting in. So the players are now at this fort, everyone's dead, and they're investigating it. There's going to be a boss at the end. It's going to be, a dungeon, blah, blah, blah. They're probably not going to get a level up from killing the boss at the end of that, because it's not a huge shift in the narrative, right? It's just a side quest. It's a thing that it's gaining them honor in someone else's eyes, but it's not a big enough shift. Their level will probably come when they arrive at the tribe they're heading to, and actually start on the path to becoming, like, honored among the clans.
Okay.
Do you have a fictional reason in your games why a level 1 character can't learn a 9th level spell?
A fictional reason?
No,
I've never sat down to define that, because that's just, again, that's like, I think the fictional reason is assumed in the mechanical.
And I would say, and Alex is here. In my campaign, he used a 9th level spell as a level 1 character, I believe. Johnny played on that game, and the way I handled it, because it's one of those why not. He got a scroll and used a scroll. In fact,
right, but that's actually the thing is, mechanically, as long as the spell on the scroll is in your spell list, you can use that scroll.
And he could eventually inscribe it into his spell book. It was interesting that he just happened to come into it. Now, This is almost a side. I don't want to steal from Eric's, but I started thinking about rewarding for role playing a certain way, and then say we role play a certain way. What is the reward we get for good role playing, say, in D&D? And then
there's inspiration, but I don't see a lot of DMs use inspiration. Even the ones that I go at my local game shop, none of them touch inspiration, and I'm
it's a challenge. Yeah.
So
And then you can also give some experience points. But I notice in Dungeons and Dragons, oftentimes the reward for X amount of experience points is you go up a level and then you're given more combat abilities. Because at the end of the day, it's still kind of a game about killing monsters and finding treasure. With all these other themes and emotional pulls, some of the best movies I've watched at the end of the day are fairly hack and slash. But I start thinking about, does the system support other rewards or mechanical rewards for role playing a certain way?
I will say one of my favorite level up systems, and I haven't really been able to experience it, but I've been reading about it, is Torchbearer.
Mhm.
You get fate points and persona points by playing your belief goals and
Is
instincts.
Torchbearer a burning wheel system?
It's like
I don't know. I've never played Torchbearer.
it's like
Damn, Eric.
mouse guard on
This-
roids.
This Diddy.
I
Yeah.
know. I know what the cover looks like. That's not what I asked. though,
It
'cause-
plays exactly like mouse guard, but there are a few changes.
Fair enough.
It's
Okay,
ki-
that's
it's
what I
kind of
was-
like playing Pokemon the card game and then going to Magic the Gathering. They have the same general kind of idea.
Jesus.
I was going to say the survival horror of role playing games, isn't it? Isn't it kind of like winding up your beautiful invention and waiting for it to crash and burn?
Yeah.
Which is kind of beautiful. And I was like, I know Eric's been streaming it recently. I've actually been watching. I'm like, because I have a friend of mine whose desk is right across from mine. He's a game designer. Doesn't play many role playing games, but he's been dying to play Torchbearer for years since the game was released. And it's a system I want to try.
I enjoy it. It has a nice kind of like old adventure Zork the MS DOS game kind of feel.
Mhm.
I will say when we first did like a first session, I didn't know what the fuck was going on, and no,
Yeah.
hold on. And it's no one's fault, but it's like, it was confusing at first because when you're going from mouse guard over to Torchbearer, there are a few subtle changes that now you got to really think about. But the leveling system is, if you wanted to go from level 1 to level 2, it's like 3 fate, 3 persona each.
Spent.
Spend. You have to spend that. So those rewards you've been getting for playing your belief, playing your goals, playing your instincts, and MVP, workhorse, and all that other stuff, you've been accumulating those that you can use to help yourself during the game. Now it comes to like, do I want to, get a reroll of this dice, or do I want to save this so I can level up and get
Mhm.
better stuff? I like that leveling system. Now it might be a little bit too mechanical, but that way it's like I'm getting rewarded for playing my character with the beliefs, goals, and instincts. And now it comes down to the end of the day, I'm being rewarded for playing my character, but now I got to think of mechanically, what do I want to do? Do I want to pick up these dice and re-roll them, or
That seems to be
Yeah.
to be a modern trend for games, though, right? Is the desire to make a narrative position or a narrative perspective on everything that you do, and then give you the mechanical rewards for that taking that narrative initiative essentially. And I think that it makes the game that much more fun, which is why the hybrid system that Aspirin was talking about is, I think, the right way to go for a system like D&D that is so mechanically heavy.
Yeah.
Right.
There are 3 questions every game asks. One is, what is this game about? Right. The second one is, how is it mechanically go about doing the thing what it's about? And then the third question is, how does it reward players for engaging in the thing mechanically of what it's about?
I would love to have a system for leveling up that was like the milestone that Askren was talking about. At certain plot points, the party levels up. But at the same time, I like the idea that you're rewarding certain players. And I know it doesn't fit like a millennial like thought process, but like, not everyone's going to get a trophy. So if you get an inspiration, maybe be able to say, I'm going to spend that inspiration to level up.
Now here's the thing I just want to add, because you guys kind of were talking about rewarding for good role play, and it made me realize, I guess something I've probably I have a horror game every Saturday called Writhing Moon. 4 is one of my players. He's in chat. And we experimented with a leveling system, mostly because I didn't understand Open Legends leveling system because I hadn't really read much about it. And I couldn't find it in the document. So what I decided to do was basically, we had 4 people in the group. I decided to give everyone a point, and it was their job to basically choose someone in the party to award that point to, based on something they did that session, right? And
yeah, Grant did that during our little one shot that we did. He stopped everybody and said, "Okay, I got 4 inspirations. Convince me who you're going to give that inspiration to and why they deserve the inspiration."
And this was before I learned about Mouse Guard's sort of nomination system and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was basically, or it might have been just when I was just starting it. But it was something I wanted to try because I wanted the players to sort of spend a little bit of time at the end of the session sort of going over everyone else's deeds and deciding like who, basically forcing the players to connect with moments that happened. And then the idea was like, okay, you're level 2, you need to accumulate 2 points to level up to level 3, or maybe 3. I don't remember how it worked. But I kind of stopped that, not out of not because it wasn't working, but because like that game, first of all, I just never rewarded great role playing because first of all there was just so much of it, right? And because my players never seemed to not bring their A game if I didn't reward them mechanically, like if we didn't break flow to like say you have inspiration for that moment, they didn't like all of a sudden not play great scenes out. And also at the end, like it just so happened that I was trying to drop every session on like a tense cliffhanger, and I just would end up forgetting to I just because of that build up and stuff, I just kind of forget to do the rewards at the end of it. And it never really seemed like they haven't leveled up, and we just stopped leveling up, but their roles keep climbing higher and higher because they keep getting
What would be wrong with doing every session is implied that you leveled up once?
Probably because they'd be like level 30.
Is that horrible?
They'd be like level 30 by now.
Well, so I have not even jumped into why. I mean, Eric was bringing up Blades in the Dark and started talking about the experience system and the discussion that goes along with that. And I was shaking my head there, and I was just kind of backing off. I'm a little bitter about how awesome the experience delving in Blades in the Dark is for a number of reasons, and it's a lot about every session being so impactful in their ability to grow. One of the challenges with Blades in the Dark is that because of the leveling system and it is basically a checklist, a lot of the players will step up and just start playing the checklist. They'll still be playing a great game, but they'll be playing the checklist, and next thing you know, the maximum that a character can get in any given session is 8 experience points. So 1 is the minimum, depending upon per each, maximum of 2 per each of the defined checkpoints.
Okay.
But I had characters who were doing 6 and 8 at a time early on. And all of a sudden we had these incredibly powerful characters. And now we're 60 hours into each group's game, essentially. And I have some incredibly strong characters who now I have to find a new way to challenge them.
I think if I did Writhing Moon over, I would probably steal one of those Burning Wheel style or Apocalypse style like leveling systems. Just to have them have that checklist to sort of like to keep them tracking and pushing their own stories and stuff. And so I could easily do like that's if I did it over, I'd probably steal one of those systems.
Right, but so in the same way though, they're still advancing so quickly. The challenge is now providing dramatic effect, providing a dramatic consequence, putting them in circumstances that is going to challenge them. I am having to throw larger and larger situations at these characters and find unconventional ways of social interaction or role playing, so that they feel challenged because they can walk into a situation and decimate a room. Right. If it's straight up combat. Right. And that was a mistake on my part in not understanding the true power in that checklist and how strong it is, how easy it is for people to, in just a matter of a couple of hours, earn the essentially the legitimate maximum experience that they could.
Ironically, that problem is one I have in Pathfinder also, because it's not because of how fast they're leveling, it's just because the players are so good at playing the system that they absolutely decimate any fight that isn't ridiculously overtuned. And like, there was a monster that I threw at them last week or this week that would have wrecked a normal party, right? Because it was like every time it was stabbed, it would get a growth point, and then with 5 growth points, it would increase in its size and gain like a level template. So it would just get bigger and stronger and regenerate. But they were just straight up annihilating this thing, like, because that's what they do. And so, yeah, you're right about the sort of the scaling is sometimes I think it sometimes scales a little bit more than the system expects.
Go ahead, Alex.
Go for it.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, then there's my players that are absolutely terrified if I say roll for initiative, because they know I will only run combat if there's a chance people will die on their side. Otherwise, because I noticed specifically when I had been playing a lot of 5th edition D&D, I was like, it takes me an hour or 90 minutes to run a combat if it's a handful of goblins, or if it's, the orcish horde. So if dice are coming out, we might as well. I won't use the word epic, but it will be deadly. I kind of want to go back to Eric made a point about, is there a fictional reason in your game why a level 1 character wouldn't know a 9th level spell? It made me think about my Dungeon Master. My Dungeon Master's been playing since 1976. He started playing in the 9th grade when his sister's boyfriend invited him to play D&D. He's a retired Marine. He has a degree in applied physics. He has a master's in classical studies, and in his world, regardless of system,
quick side, is he the main character from 3 Hearts and 3 Lions?
He very well could be. In fact, he's read the book. He's like, I would have made these decisions. And that's
of course that person would.
He's a great guy.
Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Yeah, he's my dungeon master. It's funny. I'm his son's dungeon master, so there's kind of this lineage going through. But Brian, when he runs, experience points determine the level up, and he's very careful about how he gives experience, and he's very, very, very meticulous about. He goes, okay, you leveled up. You'll get to roll your hit die. Well, yeah, what about my cool ability? He goes, well, let me see what the ability is. Okay, I'm going to let you have this one. Well, what about this? I want to be a Path of the Bear, Totem, Barbarian, et cetera, et cetera. He goes, well, where's the nearest barbarian tribe? Do you know? Well, no, I don't know. He goes, your character is going to need to find out. He's going to need to find that tribe. Maybe there's a Path of a Bear guy there. You're going to have to walk across the sword coast. You're going to have like 5 or 6 gaming sessions. You're going to meet the guy and you're going to convince him to teach you. What I like about that, now as players at first we're like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. We just spent 3 sessions winding across. But you think about the things that happened during those 3 sessions. We learned all the local geography as lower level characters that were slowly gaining experience. We learned the types of creatures that happened to be in the high forest. We made allies with this bear tribe and had the opportunity to gain new abilities. So by the time we were done, we accomplished a couple other goals. We affected the geopolitics of the campaign world. Mm-hmm. We learned more of what would be the overall story. And we also learned that if we want to know powerful spells, there must be someone who can teach us these powerful spells. And if we were a level 1 character, he might say, well, sure, if you were trained by the High Wizard, but these are hard. These spells have very rare components. Not many people know them. Your character probably hasn't had the opportunity to meet the one guy in this world who knows it yet, but we'll see. And he's not, he's kind of a toughie like that, but let's just say it's taken about 9 months to get to 3rd level. I think we just hit 4th level last session, but it's been a great kind of learn the world campaign. Slow progress, but exciting stories.
So as a GM, I haven't had the opportunity to run those types of events, on a large scale. I've done there are little things in one shots where it's like, okay, you need to go and do this. As a player, I was in a Star Wars FFG campaign running for about 2 years, and we got to play. It was an adult game. We basically got to play once a month or once every other month because everybody's schedules, right? But that was, there was a time where I went 3 sessions without, learning some skills or learning, doing something, because it narratively did not make sense for me to be able to learn those skills. And so by the time I got a chance to do that, and granted, I was playing, somebody who was trying to become, going from force sensitive to learning some Jedi skills. That story getting me to that point where I found a holocron, and I was, engaging the holocron and having the conversation, and it was giving me, the basics of what I needed in order to use my lightsaber skills or whatever. Those types of things excite me as a player. I love that level of storytelling and that level of pace. Now, granted, I don't like the, the month in or, every couple of months kind of a thing, but from a player's perspective, that's the type of story that I want to get through that.
The way that you said this in chat, and I wanted to talk about the bear tribe and finding the teacher and all that stuff. I did want to touch on it briefly, but you brought it up, so it's good. The way I phrase this when I describe to other DMs my philosophy on it is, anything that I can turn into gameplay, I will, right? And so I don't generally do that for players with their class skills, right? I don't make players seek out a teacher for the skills that are within the progression of the class they have already chosen, because I think that is a little bit nitpicky and a little bit of a waste of time. But for example, I had a player in this Crimson Throne game who started out using a katana because his character was dressed like a foreigner, kind of like in Asian clothing or TN clothing in Pathfinder. Used a katana, not because he was from TN, but he just liked the look of it, and it was kind of exotic, and it made him stand out. But about halfway through the campaign, and he had actually taken a specialization feat because katana is an exotic weapon. About halfway through the campaign, he found a rapier. And he said, "Can I use this rapier?" And I said, "Sure, you can. But if you want to specialize in the rapier, you're going to need to find a teacher, who can retrain your skills such that you have I think he wanted to go from, I forget what he wanted to go from, something to like a swashbuckler or something like that, right? But yeah, find a trainer do that on your own time, right? Seek it out, talk to NPCs, explore the world, and then and we talked about this in the when we talked about crafting on this show. Like, then dedicate some of your character's time, right, to learning skills, because it's not something that we're just going to hand wave away, right? You're going to need to find the time to spend on it.
I agree with that. I also like Johnny's idea and Grant's GM's idea about, I'm much like as a player, I like to always tell a good story, so if I'm playing a barbarian and I'm wanting to take the totem bear class, I, as a player, wouldn't be that upset if my GM said, you're gonna go have to find like a shaman to teach you how to use this. I'd be like, okay, that tells a good story, that's character progression. But like, if it makes sense that I would just know the ability, I understand. But if it's something like, you have to go commune with your god to learn this ability, I am not opposed to saying I am going to go find where this god's church is and ask them, can you teach me this ability? With Charlotte Weatherfield's learning that soul trap spell. he is his whole backstory is he's a cloistered scholar. He was born and raised. He's basically the Quasimodo of a giant library, So he would be able, if he wanted to, I would ask the GM, can I learn this spell? Can I nusto it into my my spell book? And if I can come up with a good idea or a good story, like I'm going to go find this wizard that will teach me how to use this spell, not on a scroll base, but as part of my arsenal. What would you do if I said I want to learn? Okay, we'll make it very like over exaggerated. Power word death or whatever.
What's the power word kill?
The power word kill. If I wanted Shallot to learn power word kill, I have a scroll of it, but I want to. I say I will go find somebody to teach me how to use this effectively.
So we never actually answered it, and I had kind of said it, and I guess some people looked like they didn't enjoy my answer, but when I said that I believe, or in my head at least, when there is a mechanical limitation, that mechanical limitation essentially is the fictional limitation. And what I mean by that is, for example, when you say why can't a level 1 wizard ready level 9 spells? Like, well, because they don't have those spell slots available to them. Well, why don't they? Because that's how the magic system in this world works. Some sort of abstraction from the mechanical to the fictional, right? I haven't codified it into a language, but because the mechanical describes, for example, a level 1 wizard has this many first level spell slots, but no second level spell slots. Well, that essentially describes how in the world a person who is not trained or has not practiced their magic for a certain amount of time doesn't have the power within them to cast those higher level spells at this point in time, right? That makes sense to me.
Okay. But what if somebody came with you with a compromise saying, if I use this higher level spell, I expend all of my spell slots.
Well,
every single one.
That's not an equivalent trade-off, because a level 9 spell is not
well.
Worth level 1 spell slots.
Now hold up. I'm talking about a compromise. So you would say, okay, if you're a level 4 wizard and you're going to try to cast this level 9 or we'll go level 6, you know.
Okay, have you watched what the fuck? I don't know the name of it because I'm horrible with Japanese names. There's an anime where there's a female wizard whose only spell is explosion and she can't cast anything else, because she just uses one, and she has no more mana for the rest of the day. That's what you're essentially talking about.
Yeah. If they really want to use that spell, they will bottom out everything.
Right.
Maybe they black out. Maybe they have a nosebleed because they're putting so much mental stress.
Okay. Why would the rest of the party agree to that?
Here's because they want power word kill. Here's where I'd rely on, because the first role-playing game I ever ran was Weston Games D6 Star Wars. I started running it. I was 11 years old and had to run for a group of...
Choice game, by the way.
Yeah, and I had to run for a group of 17-year-olds at age 11. But there's a point in the book where they explain that, and that's why when people are like, I want to be a Jedi, I was like, back before the prequels, back when Jedi was just kind of, it was this idea.
There was one Jedi.
If there was old men that used to be Jedi. There were robots that used to be Jedi. There were young boys that wanted to be Jedi. There were, the idea of a Jedi was very weird. And in that game, it explains to you that says, if you hit this threshold of force powers, Darth Vader and the Emperor are going to know that you exist and seek you out. So I might say, I'm going to give you power word kill, and then make a note that Vecna desires to claim his soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add, I'm going to have my plot radar. I'm just going to add this almost like a Dungeon World campaign front where Vecna now wants to claim the soul of Shallot Weatherfields. And it might be that the next adventure, you're going to find the hand of Vecna. And it's just going to be, we're going to be playing it. Then it's going to be like, you're going to find the Tome of the Stilled Tongue. Next thing you know, his cult's going to start chasing you along the road. And it's going to be like, you're going to have this powerful thing, but it's going to come with a great cost. And it's going to completely change. I'm going to be like, well, geez, sorry, Wizards of the Coast. I just paid $54.99 for Storm King's Thunder, but now I'm running Shallot Weatherfield's runs from Cult, which is what I love.
I should add, by the way, I'm not completely opposed to, if this is how if you want to do that in your campaign, you can absolutely compromise with your player to let them cast a fucking high level spell. In exchange for every other class ability they have. Sure, go for it.
Philosophically, I'm opposed to it, but I'm saying
I probably wouldn't make that choice.
Oh no, I agree, but it's like I feel that like if it tells a good story, You know, I'm not saying I want power word kill because I want to look at every NPC and say,
I think
dead.
there is an underlying question of like, well, why do you want to do that? With your
Exactly. Maybe if it actually came up during a gameplay, well, I would like to learn counter spell, right? Or I would like to use up all of my power to counter this spell. You know, what do we have to do do
right?
it?
So I guess the way I'm looking at it is you're essentially phrasing a conundrum, whereas the player is asking to build their character based on this one particular obscure homebrew thing, and it's like in my head I'm like, I don't understand why. I'm failing to understand why that is a story that you want to play.
Oh well,
but,
when it comes
as a hypothetical, right?
Yeah, as a hypothetical. Now, like if we were actually doing a story and it came up and said, "Well, I learned counterspell, but I'm going to throw in all of my power to try to counter this spell, and I'm going to roll. I'm going to go through all the motions."
That's slightly different. I think Johnny and Eric looked like they wanted to say something on the topic.
I'm going to let Eric go first.
Well, the only thing I wanted to add was that it's okay at that point to be like, that's not what I want to do, right? Like, it's totally okay to be, you know what? Sorry, Zippy. In the first session, being like, you know what, this isn't my bag. Like if you had a session 0 and you're bringing that pitch up and being like, I want a character who's like, I think it would be really cool to have like a really powerful secret that I had to like learn about through play and these types of things. And like maybe that could be like a 9th level spell. And it's like, okay, I could see that. Yeah, and like, what if like the god of freaking secrets who murdered all of those named spells that are in that player's handbook, those are all spellcasters that Vecna has killed.
He killed the Circle of 8.
Like, those are all people killed by him. So it's like, do you want to be hunted by like an evil, like, I could imagine you want this sort of like high person looking at, like, wants you. Is that something you be down to do, like have that kind of game? And someone might do that, or but like you also don't have to entertain that in a session 0. You can be like, dude, that sounds awesome, but like,
yeah, right,
that's not my bag.
That's
like
that. I'm probably
we're playing like, Middle Earth, dude. Like I don't, and like we're playing off in this place that's not even near Sauron. Like we're not dealing with any of that shit. Like we're dealing specifically with the Mirkwood, all right, and we're not dealing with anything in Gondor. We're not doing, but I don't really know a lot of the geography of Middle Earth. I'm sorry, but like, but you know what I mean.
This is
like,
why the whole idea of tabletop RPG is a collaborative experience. I can go up to you and say, my secret is that I have a scroll of power word death, and I'm holding on to it for a very specific time, and like, that is my personal thing. What do you think about it? And if you say, doesn't really fit the general tone of what I'm trying to do, fine. As a player, I should be able to sit down and say, okay, here's another idea that I have. And then it's brainstorming, bouncing off like
this is,
well, that this
goes,
is the, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
I want to go to Johnny, and then I want to bounce to questions after this, by the way.
No, Eric's got a great. I think Eric's
15 seconds. It was just like the
it.
one thing I wanted to say that like for good new GMs and experienced GMs, when a player makes a choice, like I want to be an elf, I want to play a warlock, I want to be a wild magic spellcaster, what they're doing is that they're holding up a flag saying, these are my choices I make that are interesting. Play with these things, press these buttons that I've given you. These are flags being like, interact with this. So like if you wanted to have fun with the character that way, play with those sort of things and bring those sort of things. You're an elf. Oh, you're an elf warlock. Is that really common? Or is that, are you kind of like an outcast for that? Like, and all of a sudden, like you have all these weird things as well for your game. Like those are all options. And whether it's a really high level game or really small level game, the choices that you make as a player and what you want to bring to the table are conscious flags being like, these are the things I'm interested in. Play with them.
Mm-hmm. So everything that we're talking about, and we're going back and forth about this, all of this goes back to the idea that this is a collaborative affair. Absolutely. It's basically conversation, right? Session 0s are conversations, right? Every game is a conversation. It's a collaborative story where we set precedents by, what we say and what we do with our actions as players and NPCs. I think the interesting thing about what Alex just said in respect to the power word kill scroll was, at first it was sort of this vague kind of concept of a character comes up and says, I want to do this, right? And I've got this, I want to have this as my secret or whatever. That's interesting, but difficult to frame inside of a story.
Mhm.
But when you just said, my secret is my character is carrying around this scroll of power word kill, and I want to use it in a very specific circumstance and in it for a very specific reason. The moment what came to my mind is, even though that's a difficult situation, that there's that play going on, there's a level of conflict and drama around that circumstance. And the first thing that I jumped to was one of my favorite examples of some serious conflict for a character in a movie is Captain Jack Sparrow. First Pirates of the Caribbean.
I was going to say that, yeah.
He carries around the pistol specifically for, Barbossa, right?
Yeah.
It's meant for Barbossa. He will threaten, he will make a situation where that comes into conflict, and he will make that decision not to use it, right? And this is the exact same thing. And at that point, that's when it went from, well, it's sort of this vague concept to, oh my God, that is a beautiful idea. I want to find out what the hell he is going to do with that scroll in that circumstance.
Right.
I want to see the conflict around him making those decisions.
It also takes a great deal of trust between the GM and the player to know that if I say yes, that you have a power word kill scroll in your possession, I trust you not to, with great power comes great responsibility. I gave you a power word kill scroll. Are you going to go be a little feck nut about it? Just go over and be like,
right,
you're the king of the castle. Powered kill. I'm the king of the castle.
I think what it boils down to is there's a lot of pre-conversation that needs to happen in that situation, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's why we have session zeros. It's why it's why we talk to players about their concepts, about what they want to do, because that thing is, like I said, that's part of the character arc that they want to play through, right? And so talking about that and laying that out beforehand is much more valid than a player just saying, hey, I'd like to trade all my power for one spell.
And I'm not saying, like, as a player, I want you, the GM, to always hit my character arcs. You have to do everything my character wants. But if you ask me, what does my character want? And I tell you what my character wants, I feel like now that this is the general direction of my character to go, it makes my character feel more rooted into this world that you're trying to create.
So we've been kind of jawing for a while, but how about why don't we, I know we got a lot of people in chat, and I said this a second ago, but why don't we turn it over to chat questions? I know we've had, by the way, since we're taking a just a quick transition here, I want to give a second to thank everyone in chat who has been hanging out. I haven't been able to sort of be talking with you in chat, but our panel, these guys here have been kind of chatting with you guys. You guys have been super active in chat, kind of keeping along with the discussion, and it is fantastic. And I wish that I could go back and read all of the conversations that you guys are having. But thank you guys for joining us. If you're just joining us recently, this is the DM's Table. It is a weekly show that we do every week here on Exploding Dice, where we bring on a panel of your favorite Twitch dungeon masters to come and duke it out and share opinions and just pass the RPG of love on. And thank you so much, Koros RPG, for the subscription. Thank you for joining us, my friend. Guys, raise a drink, ED cheer in chat for Mr. Koros, our second minion of the day. Thank you, my friend, for joining us. I said this before, that we're going to be taking questions and stuff from chat. So remember to tag at Exploding Dice. So I will see them. I'm going to go back and I'm going to try and get to the ones that I can see. Some of them may have disappeared, so if they did and we didn't get to them, just repost them in the beginning. We'll try to. Game Master's Vault says, if you only had one question to ask a player for their backstory, what question would you ask?
What does your character want?
I think we already covered that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the main question.
I don't think I would ask them that.
Nice to be the contrarian, Grant. Jeez, thank you.
No, I don't care what they want, because they're most likely not going to get it in one of my games. I'm being honest when I say that.
Okay.
I think
I'm interested.
I'd want to hear the character concept, they pitch to me, and then I would probably ask them, tell me the most interesting aspect about your character. For example, Alex's Minotaur character is the fact that he had adopted 3 elven daughters, and that's so rich with story and potential there that has impacted other characters' backstories and the initial hook for the adventure that I'm designing and writing. The fact that he had mentioned that he had these 3 elven daughters, I'm sure he wants to end up becoming the ancestral god of the Minotaurs and things like that. That one is outside of the scope of the campaign, and I feel it'll be a driving force of his character. But for me as a dungeon master, having the ability to texture my world with these assets, and I've written on my plot radar that there's these 3 elven daughters that might come in as an adventure hook at different points, I'd probably ask what the most interesting aspect of your character is, or the one unique thing from 13th age, something of that nature.
I see what you're saying. Instead of like, what do you want? Because you're not going to really touch on their wants. Tell what sets your character out from like everyone else in your race.
Eric or Johnny? Johnny, you said we talked about it. Eric, do you have any quick additions? I want to keep the answers to this fairly brief because we got a lot of questions in chat, and I want to try and get
I'll just do I do a leading question based on the premise of the campaign, being like, why is the Jarl King pissed off at you, right? Or like, what did you do to earn the ire of the big bad, or something like that, right?
Good. That's actually that's a really good good question, especially when you're doing like really quick hook,
like a focus, like a focused story game. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the Rob Father says, my players are intent on creating an adventuring guild and running it. What are your thoughts on that type of gameplay instead of, I guess, the more party-focused, like, adventuring style?
Like they're running the guild?
I assume that means they probably want to essentially send out guild members on their own adventures and sort of do the management stuff.
That would be interesting.
I think that falls in line with
Darkest Dungeon.
Right. I feel like that falls in line with the kind of the Kingmaker style gameplay, right? It's a smaller scale, but it falls like with the nation building and the city building and stuff like that.
So it's almost like playing diplomacy in a lot of ways.
Right. I think if your players like bookkeeping and management stuff, then yeah, that can be engaging to them. I have said this before, but I had a game once where my players told me they wanted to create a tavern as a front for their like resistance base. They just wanted to buy and stock a tavern so they could like hide in plain sight. And I said, okay, so you guys are going to have to do the bookkeeping here. You're going to have to find your alcohol. You're going to find your employees. You're going to have to buy some space, maintain it, right? They were like, yeah, we don't want to do this. We'll just stick to our hideout, right? So some people are totally not down with that kind of micromanagement and that sort of
it doesn't have to be micromanagement though, right? Because there are games. Blades in the Dark is one example. City of Mist is another example. There are a number of games that are released or coming up that have some sort of structure around an organization of some kind of the players together as a group. It's not just calling them a party. It's in both Blades and City of Mist, it's a crew, and they have certain resources and certain aspects about that, but they don't necessarily have to manage the day-to-day. It's just something that helps represent their ability to do certain things in the game, right? It enables them to do certain things that otherwise that they would have to work incredibly hard for, right? So it's a tool for enabling, and if that's what they're talking about, then yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea. It kind of reminds me of going back to like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and the whole henchman thing, right?
Yeah.
You had this ability to just build this a stronghold and have all of these minions and have henchmen, and all of a sudden it became more about doing larger tasks, right? Accomplishing larger things, and maybe that's what they're looking to do.
It kind of reminds me of like how World of Warcraft is right now with all the followers and sending them out on missions and stuff. I say if they want to run a guild, do what Askren said. Explain to them what goes into running a guild, and do they really want to?
And then if they react positively to it, let them do it, right? Let
them do it. Go for it.
If that's how they want their D&D game to, what they want their campaign to change into, then there's no reason why you shouldn't allow them to play that way.
And guild's kind of an interesting concept. Just to give a quick answer, Guild's like what, a 501c4 nonprofit organization, so it's like a trade association, like the Screen Actors Guild. And so it'd be like, how do you denote membership? Do they have cards? Do they have a sash? Do they have heraldry that they wear? How is your guild government executed? Are there dues? And then how do you collect dues? And it's kind of interesting if you're in a fantasy world where it's like someone's got to go around and collect the dues. So just think about how it actually operates and functions. Then as a game master, think about what is the most fun game mechanics, if there's any, that you could introduce to make the game more fun and exciting. It would just be like, is it chasing guild members down to collect dues, or is it the fact that you might show up in a city and there's a guy who's wearing the same sash as you and he gives you, the secret handshake, and it's like, we have an ally here.
I think that's actually a good point, sort of finding the most fun. For example, like Alex pointed out, the Warcraft thing. Yeah, it was really cool sending followers out on missions and gaining followers and stuff for a little while. But after a while, it just becomes really boring, and it might become that your players after a little while will be like, okay, you know what, this isn't as interesting, so let's just move on with the higher level narrative stuff, and we can just sort of gloss over what the guild does day to day,
Yeah, that's why I like it if the players they create a guild. Like, as players, they create a guild, they say who the guild master is, etc., but they themselves are just high-ranking members of the guild, so they can go out and take guild contracts if they're an adventuring guild or a monster slaying guild, whatever guild that they have. I feel like if they don't want to do like an RTS style with D&D, then they could definitely just say, we're just very high-ranking officials in this guild that we've been given a lot of privilege to, and we're going to go out and we're going to go get glory for the guild.
I do like the idea of the players kind of going around a city and like finding out what the major problems are, and then creating their own contracts for like monsters and criminals and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's entirely possible to have an entire campaign about setting up that stuff.
Yeah, you totally could.
Right.
Especially
like an urban city campaign or something like that.
Oh yeah, and an urban, because you then know, and you also would then have to sort of decide, how does this gel with like the concept of a big bad or enemy factions in the city, right? Maybe if you
bureaucracy is the villain the whole time.
It's like maybe someone else is gunning for your guild, right? Like maybe there's another guild that wants, or maybe you're cutting into some of the Thieves Guild territory or something like that, right? There's a lot of
I love it. The fucking sponsored magical segue riding like XCOM adventure crew, like with like the fucking black like tactical shirts on segways, being like, oh yes, that's such a nice guild you got there. Yes, and just snobbishly driving away. Sorry.
Out of Order Show said, I've heard things throughout the show about beginnings. What about ends? How do you plan the end of a session or a major campaign?
I don't.
You never hit it.
Yeah, no.
You have an idea of how it's supposed to end, and then your players just decide to Morrowind it, fuck it up so much that what you had planned, I guess, isn't what's going to happen.
So I have a general rule, and that's I always try and end on some sort of cliffhanger, just because I don't like ending like, okay, you go, you set camp, we'll pick this up next week, right? There's no tension or excitement there for me, so I always try and end on a tense moment. And that means paying very, very close attention to the clock, right? When is like, and for me, this, you could actually reverse this if you're not playing on stream and you haven't given yourself like a set block of time, like 3 hours for your session and no more, right? If you're playing at home, you might have more freedom to kind of go over. But when I see that we're ticking down to the last hour, okay, how can I guide things such that tension begins to sort of ramp up, and we can end on a moment where things, and sometimes it becomes, okay, like literally in the moment, a player's doing something, okay, I'm scrambling, what can I just throw out there that just turns the whole scene on its head, and then we can just shut it down, right? Like, that's what I'm always thinking of at the end of a session.
For me, I'd say I do think of the end of campaign, but I use this one guiding principle that After a decision is made, all agency is lost. So I put them essentially into a choice where this is it. This is the end of the campaign. They normally have a 3-session warning where I think this is going to end soon. The story is ending. And in 3 sessions, this is it. And you're going to be given a hard choice where this is the end of your agency. And the last one, I want to say of June of this year, it was the end of Storm King's Thunder. They had decided they would join the Storm Giants and face the big bad of that campaign. But half the players were carrying an artifact. They had been carrying the Eye of Vecna, and they knew that Asarek's tomb is where the Sword of Kos was, and that's where they could use that to destroy the Eye of Vecna. So they'd have to go into the Tomb of Horrors, a death trap dungeon, because Tales of the Yawning Portal came out after Storm King's Thunder, and the Tomb of Horrors was beneath Imrith's, the Blue Dragon's lair. So half the players were like, we're going into the Tomb of Horrors. We may die, but if we die, this is what we're supposed to do. Our Order of Paladins commanded us to do this. We have the eye. We've been chased by cults for about 6 months now. Just half the players. So it's one of those things. I let them know it's like, you've made your choice. Or they could have said, screw it, we're not destroying the eye. The campaign ends there for them. But it's, okay, you've made a choice. There's no more agency. You're going into the tomb. You may die. You may destroy the eye. That's it. And the other one was, before that, it was, do you go and face the big bad, or are you done? That's essentially it, where I let them know this is your final choice.
So if they wanted to have more structure and actually write out how they want the campaign to end, I feel like write out how you want it to end and then start writing out possibilities of how it might actually end due to certain variations, like these new games that have choices. If you make certain choices, the game's going to end differently. You know, if you don't kill Radovid of Redania in The Witcher, but Ciri lives, she won't become the Empress of Nilfgaard. She'll become a Witcher. You know, you make all these. That's how the ending adapts to the choices that you make. You can say this is how I want it to end, and then write down like different ways of how it might end, and then you'll get a feel towards, I guess, the middle of the campaign of how this is actually going to go down. In my opinion, you can't go in without actually playing the game and say this is how it's going to end. This is the definitive end. Without actually, I feel like railroading your players.
I feel like the players should have a good by the time a campaign is approaching its end state, they should have a pretty good clue as to what the what the final goal is going to be. Like, by the time you get into the last arc of a video game or any kind of book, you know where the climax is going. It's going to be a face-off between, Luke and Darth Vader, right? It's going to be the face-off between you and the big, like you and Handsome Jack, right? At the whatever.
Oh yeah, thinking of it in scenarios is good.
It's just but it also the players, I think like you said, need to kind of have enough time to create their own terms on which to kind of to have at least have the story move. Maybe not, they can't have the fight on their own terms, but they know, and they have enough time to sort of affect some sort of agency on the ending scene. Like
a prophesized vision. Like you get that glimpse of the scenario, but you don't know. Yeah, you don't know how to get there, or you don't know how it's going to happen, but you see this little glimpse into the future. You see where this is all going to go down, and you got to get from point A to point B.
Johnny or Eric, you guys want to chime in at all?
I mean, I think it's pretty good. Mostly, yeah. No, I mean, I pretty much was agreeing with Grant, which is.
Go ahead.
It's my theme for the day. That's just my theme for the day. Whatever Grant says, really.
I think I think it depends on the situation. I mean, for example, when in regards to sessions, right? I agree with Askren about leaving on a cliffhanger. In fact, sometimes the cliffhanger isn't a dramatic moment in the sense of there is some risk or peril that the players are going to be at. Sometimes it's a reveal of a piece of information that is new and shifts the focus of the narrative in some way, shape, or form, and that's a perfect way. And I have done probably the majority of that more than somebody is going to die, somebody is about to get attacked, somebody's
Right. That is an important contextualization, because it's not necessarily just, and you see the monster looming above you, and that's where it's not just that. It's always, but that is one form of making the players want the next session to come, right?
Exactly.
That you need to keep that final moment in their minds until the next session, so that you could pick up right on that energy.
Right, exactly. So when it comes to the idea of ending a campaign, I think I do a hybrid of what all of you are talking about. And what it basically boils down to is this. When I start something, I have an idea of where I think it should end, or where I think I would want it to end, right? I tend to put together one main story hook that is the larger narrative of the game I want us to play, or to the story I want to tell. And I've got a bunch of smaller stuff. Every action that the players initiate in that world, whether it's something I anticipated or it's an entirely new storyline that builds off of something that they asked for, adapts or causes me to shift what that ending goal is going to be. I still have a general idea of where that's going to be, but at the end of the day, that evolution, that shift, that change in narrative gets affected by every decision that they make. So at some point, I'm still looking to get to that end. And that will be the defining moment, whether it's a big boss fight, whether it's the ultimate reveal of who, of some piece of knowledge, whether it's they save the day in some way, shape, or form that has nothing to do with some antagonist, right? Whatever it is, they get to that point eventually. There is that is the evolution process that I get to in respect to ending a campaign. I will say that playing games on stream affects that a little bit, right? Because there's a number of variables that play into in respect to scheduling, respect to, just general availability, how long you're going to be able to do something. And I will say that does have a separate effect, but that doesn't really change my goal to getting to that end point.
Right. And that's I think why I said, why I tried to make it fairly explicit that the way that the reason I keep my eye on the clock is because I set myself a solid 3-hour time limit for streams. Off stream, it's not, I don't care that much. So it doesn't matter. It's less about when the time is coming up and more about what event is coming up that I can end on, right? Like what moment in what scene is coming up that we can end on, rather than, okay, time is coming, how do I push this scene to an ending point. But yeah, I mean, definitely I don't have a lot of input on ending a campaign, because I actually have not had a campaign make it all the way to the end yet. It's the curse. It's real.
If you leveled faster, you could end it. No, I'm just messing. But
then I wouldn't feel complete.
Most of my games ended up ending because a character decides to retire, less than it's mostly because I do more character focused stories anyways. So when a character is no, I feel like I got the thing that my character really wants, or you know what, no, my character would kind of break up with the group right now, and we would probably go our separate ways, and it's okay. And then they'll bring in a new character next week or something, or play but I want to play your demonic girlfriend that was really fun those 2 sessions they were here, or whatever, right? And it's okay, yeah, no, that we can make that work. And but typically it's that, and then maybe another character might also be yeah, I feel after we did that thing, we probably would be going real would probably take a lot of time off. It's yeah, we probably wouldn't be getting into that much more hijinks, or something like that. And all of a sudden it's 2 people out of 4 are bailing, and you're okay, well, I mean, that's a pretty good note to end on then. We'll play something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes you kind of seen all that can be seen in a game in a way, and you're I kind of want that new shit. And sometimes
true.
Players are the same way.
I also am a staunch advocate of the E6 method, the E6 variant of D&D, because I love the idea of players reaching the end of a campaign, they kill the big bad, and they're wherever the campaign is going to end, and then they can pick those characters up and start a new campaign somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Like, I like that, but D&D by default doesn't allow it, because what are you going to do with a level 20 character, right? Like, it's just...
Kill
Become
gods.
an avatar of your god.
Right, but you
Kill
can't have a
gods.
new campaign, like, I mean, you can, I suppose, but not
There's
one...
a whole shitload of planes out there that you can, as 20 level characters taking on those gods. Yeah, that's the perfect
Right,
thing.
again...
Have you seen Thor Ragnarok?
Not yet, no.
We're gonna
That's
start
funny.
Ragnarok to kill this
Yeah.
god.
Yeah.
That's actually that's actually a really good example of hitting that max point and then coming up with something new and incredibly different, which is changing the playing field for the characters in a significant way. Right? I mean, that's what getting to the high level. It's like, all right, so say you made it through all the way through some set of adventures, right? And you killed the big bad. That big bad may be a dragon. Maybe it's multiple dragons. Using the Critical Role example with the whole Chroma Conclave, or maybe it's the Frost Giants. Whatever it is, and then it's whatever the next adventure is, the next set of stories. D&D is unique in a lot of ways in that it allows you to scale up your antagonist in a very, very specific way, very easily, right?
Right.
It's so good. D&D is so good at that. Oh my god, what a game. That game is so good at doing that. No, like, there's no game that does 0 to hero better than D&D with a leveling system. Like, it's really good.
If you guys aren't
feels
familiar,
so good.
by the way, the E6 thing is literally just D&D, but you stop leveling at level 6.
My favorite D&D campaign I play in has no leveling, and we're level 1 forever. We're just kobolds serving a dragon.
Fair enough.
And we have like a stack of 8 characters in case one of us dies.
Nice.
But
That makes me want to...
Yeah, we've told an amazing story, and we've had so many shenanigans, and it's the story of our people,
Yeah. Have you heard of Ron Edwards? Have you heard of Ron Edwards, the designer? Have you heard of My Life with Master?
No.
Okay. And that it makes me think of all the games of My Life with Master. And that's such a good concept of being like trying to please this thing that's like a god and being like, oh, God, don't kill me.
And it really doesn't like us.
Bones. Yeah.
It really doesn't like us.
And it despises you. Yeah. Oh
man,
so good.
Well, guys, we are coming up, or we have hit the 6 o'clock point. I think that's I know you guys probably have to run off and do your own thing, so I think that's probably going to be the last question we're gonna take. That's gonna we're gonna hang it up for today. But if you guys are in chat, don't run away. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, some cool stuff to go over, and then of course, as always, we're gonna keep the stream going by passing the love on to someone else who is streaming. But man, I want to take a minute to thank all of my panelists. Thank you guys for hanging out today. You guys have been awesome. It has been a really interesting, a lot of great topics covered today. I hope you guys had a good time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I love coming here and talking about role-playing games. I almost love it more than playing. It's
all right,
bad.
Johnny, you don't have to come back.
I liked it till Johnny showed up.
Jeez, man.
No, it's like my dad coming in. He's like, "What are you guys playing around here?"
Reaches over, picks up the mini. Wow, and then puts it in the wrong spot.
The paint's not dry. No. Love Johnny.
Are you guys having fun in here? I told you not to have fun in this place.
Are you
No
winning,
fun.
son? Oh man.
Can you put that on pause? No, it's an online game. I can't put it on pause.
God damn it.
So why don't we go around our table and have everyone give some quick shout outs. Let's tell everyone. Tell guys, everyone who you are, what you get up to on the internet, and where people can stalk you to find more of what you get up to. Grant, why don't we start with you? You are right below me, so let's get some hooks and plugs from Mr. Grant.
All right. Well, I'm Grant Ellis. You can find me on Twitter at WisePapaGrant. I'm an independent game designer with several books coming out Q1 of next year, set in my homebrew campaign setting, Brave New Worlds. We may even end up with a third book because of the next season of Encounter Roleplay inspiring me to write some more material. I will be hosting the game The Court of the Elves, which takes place in my homebrewed setting, on Wednesday evenings on Encounter Roleplay. And you can follow me on Twitch at Grant R. Ellis. I often run D&D open mic nights where anyone's welcome to play, and we play test adventures I am writing.
Fantastic. Well, make sure you go give him a shout on Twitter. Go follow his Twitch channel. And, of course, thank him for being here and catch up with all of that content. Man, Eric, what about you, my friend?
Boy, I'm Eric. I'm Eric Vulgaris on the Twitter, Switches, and YouTubes. Right now, I'm running my Once Upon a Games on Tuesday, which we're running a game called Troll Babe, which is a lot of fun of it being a badass troll woman kicking ass. It's super fun. It's an old game, but it's one of those games that a lot of people like who design games are like, this is a huge inspiration for me. So like it's super fun to kick it old school over there. Speaking of kicking it old school too, I'm playing Keep on the Borderlands using Torchbearer on Wednesdays, which is a lot of fun. I'm doing that with a bunch of game designer friends, and so that's also a fun little treat of mine. And then on Saturdays as well, on my channel, I'm running I'm a player in 316 Carnage Amongst the Stars, which is like Starship Troopers meets Catch 22. Also run by game design friends. Also like an old classic that is getting a lot of that like a lot of people look at being like, this game inspired everything kind of stuff. So I'm kicking it in the classics of the early 2000s on my channel these days. So check me out if you're into where a lot of games come from.
Sweet. Well, go make sure you give Eric a follow. Lots of great indie and lesser known RPG content with lots of great people over there. Go check that out, man. It's some seriously good stuff. Alex, what about you? Where can people chase you down?
Well, if they really want to chase, it's not going to be. I'm not going to run fast. So, but
You've learned not to resist.
No, it just comes.
You finally learned to love Big Brother.
Just love it.
Friend computer.
Y'all want to watch me? Fine. It's your funeral. You can find me here on Twitch at Zippy_Zippo. I do a lot of nostalgic games as well as a lot of like variety gaming. Like we'll do an entire series of game. Like we did the entire series of Zork, the Great Underground Kingdom Empire. We did all of Elder Scrolls. We did all of the Pajama Sams. If you guys like those old humongous games, we do all that stuff. I also do. I'm a cast member on Encounter Roleplay every Wednesday. I'm currently in their Curse of Strahd, but this Wednesday they're transitioning to the Court of Elves, where I will be playing Zakar, the Minotaur Warlord. And on Sundays at 7 p.m. Central, I play with Eric Vulgaris over on Henley's stream, where we do Torchbearer, where I'm also one of the best Minabros. So I mean,
that game.
The fist pound to expel the spirit possessing me was just beautiful.
Yeah.
I also want to say this, and I'm gonna send a picture to Zoom chat. It's been bothering me all night or day that Alex looks exactly like my twin brother.
Oh no,
Askren, I am.
Here, hold on. I'm gonna drop a link for you guys in Zoom chat so you can see that.
He is the doppelganger.
Oh no.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, I do.
Yeah.
It's been bothering me the whole time.
Messed up. That's messed up, man.
Oh man.
It's messed up.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna call him and say, "Hey, you want to switch places for Thanksgiving?" I'm gonna sit next to you at Thanksgiving dinner.
No, he doesn't sound anything like you.
Well, I can practice.
Alex is
He's
an
a voice actor. He can practice.
I don't know, man. I wouldn't buy it, but It's been weird. I'm gonna show him the footage afterwards. He's gonna be tripped out. And Johnny, what about you, man? Where can people hunt you down and display you on
Video
their
Store
wall?
Cowboy on Twitch, Vid Store Cowboy because of the damn 15 character limit on Twitter. I am the GM for 6 and 20. It is a 3-night a week Blades in the Dark game shared across a couple of channels. We just had our season 2 finales. We're going to be starting season 3 in 2 weeks, and we'll be doing some talk shows in between all of that. Otherwise, I am actually looking to start working on my next show, which I'm hoping to be a Star Wars FFG game. I don't think there's enough Star Wars on Twitch, so and with
Love you.
with Last Jedi coming up, it's like I'm feeling my Star Wars roots here. So
Can your players be Ewok Jedis?
sure, why not?
Fuck yeah!
Only if they only speak Ewok.
I would love to see just like an Ewok just come over with a lightsaber. What was that one cartoon that they did? And like they knew
Ewoks?
magic. Yeah.
Ewoks.
The Ewoks, and they knew magic, and it's like, why wasn't this ever fucking told in the
They
movie?
they can't be Jedi because they're not a spacefaring race. All the Jedi-
I mean, with
That's not how
everything
it
that
works.
happened with the
I think
Empire, they
it's-
could just
that is how it
commandeer.
works.
No, I think
No.
they can't be Jedis because their little bear paws can't make a lightsaber.
Oh
Jedi
snap!
do not need lightsabers.
Well,
Cold-blooded.
I'm
No. Hold on. If there's an Ewok Jedi, then I want a Porg Jedi as well. You know?
Oh no!
I don't even know.
Yes.
Have we? There hasn't even been pictures of one of those
Yes, there have.
outside of the trailer.
Yeah. Oh no, not outside of the trailer. No.
only see
But
its
there are
face.
plushie dolls you can buy now.
Oh, okay.
what?
Oh, they already got the merchandise out?
No.
Man,
Yeah.
Disney.
Yeah.
Disney. Yeah, of course they do.
I mean, if
Of course
there's
they do.
a Hutt Jedi, I think anybody can be a Jedi.
That's not canon anymore.
I'm okay. Sorry, George Lucas didn't want to feed people's creativity, so he came out and said, "Everything that is not mine is not canon."
I think it was the actual
Oh, my,
Disney
kids say.
company that said it wasn't canon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a huge group now. There's like 5 or 6 people on some committee that just like goes back through all of and just starts picking and pulling.
It's I forget the name of it. It's
That's not
it's
healthy.
Story
yeah.
group.
Yeah, they Disney basically said anything that's not their films and the core films is not canon. Which I think they actually exclude. They
fucking
actually
crazy.
they were nebulous on the prequels.
That's fucking crazy.
That's
if you
super
think about it.
unhealthy because there's
Could
so
have all
much
been a dream.
books. There's so many books.
There is, and they were like, "Fuck all of it. We don't want it."
Your revenue? Fuck it.
You know who else
Your
got rid
livelihood?
of the books?
Fuck it.
The Germans got rid of the books.
It's the Star Wars books. Star
I-
Wars.
I-
Wait.
Nice
What,
guys?
Star
Is
Wars
that what you
Knocked?
got
Was
that
that
from?
what it was called?
I have a joke, but I don't want to say it because it's very, very rude.
Don't go there.
Don't do it.
Walt Disney. Let's. I'm just gonna say Walt Disney, and then let everybody just think about it.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh man.
Eric's just like, I don't know these guys.
I was trying to make a Fahrenheit 451 joke, but it wasn't coming in there.
I'm gonna leave you guys to mill on that. But seriously, thank you guys to the panel. You guys have been a blast. Thank you to everyone in chat for joining. Thank you to our subscribers and all those followers. Just some real quick wrap up. My name is Askren. I am the host here on Exploding Dice. If you guys enjoyed the content, please hit that follow button. If you really, really enjoyed the content and you want to help produce more, please hit that subscribe button. You can $5 a month. And you get some cool emotes like the Explode Gold, the D20, our Golden 20, as well as some other stuff. You also get some natural 20s and inspirations that you can give to our players during any of our games, and you just help make Dice Thulu create more content. Speaking of content, if you guys are just joining us, what else can you expect to find if you tune back to this channel? Well, you guys should stick. We're gonna drop a raid on someone, but later tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be sitting in the player seat as it is our Mouse Guard campaign, The Dark Spring, where on the forefront is sitting in the Dungeon Master seat, and it's myself, that Bronze Girl, Simply JXN, and Drunkly Romantic in the player seat. It is fucking hilarious, and you guys are gonna have a great time. So come back, check that out, 10 p.m. Eastern. This ends our week of streaming content, but we will be back maybe tomorrow with Mouse Guard with Bub or not. I don't know. Is that a thing? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be.
You can catch me tomorrow on Bubbernot's channel at 8 p.m. Eastern playing some more Mouse Guard, where I play a senile old weasel hunting mouse. Tuesday is my Fuzzy Dice talk show at 8 p.m. Eastern. This week I'm hanging out, or last week I hung out with Ivan Van Norman. This week I'm hanging out with Tom Lommel, aka the Dungeon Bastard. He's going to be coming by and having a good time. Of course, Wednesday we have episode 3 of The Daubers, our whimsical fantasy campaign, where we ruin Daryl's world. And we as we murder things that we probably shouldn't have murdered. We're playing like little halfling dudes, and we are just horrible people, and it's not family friendly at all, even though that was his intention. We killed a troll, and we were like halfway through the fight, we're like, are we the bad guys?
They tried to do it with Pee-wee's Playhouse. Pee-wee's Playhouse was not made for kids, and then they try to make it for kids.
This went the other way
Pee-wee.
around. This would be traumatizing if this was a children's cartoon. But it is hilarious. I'm also in the player seat for that, and Splattered Inc. is running the game. He does all the art for the campaign. It's fantastic. This past week we actually we raffled off a print from the show. It went to one of our lucky viewers, and we're gonna do some more cool stuff like that. Of course, Thursday. I haven't officially announced it on Twitter, but Thursdays after Thanksgiving, we have a new campaign coming. I announced the cast last night as super secret, but I'm gonna keep it under wraps on the social media for a little bit. But after Thanksgiving, you guys should tune in Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have an all-female pirate campaign called The Razor Coast that is going to be starting very, very soon. I'm going to be dungeon mastering that, and the cast is fantastic. And then, of course, Friday we take off. Saturday is Writhing Moon, our open legend horror campaign, and man, is that getting heavy. We Team Bloodhole became a thing as the romance finally blossomed, so you guys should check out the VOD from last night. It is a fantastic show. That's our week of content here, and that you guys all help us create. So thank you so much for your support, and thank you to these guys for helping me, just being awesome and letting me put on this ridiculous show where we talk about Dungeon Master stuff, and all of you guys for being amazing in the chat. We're gonna kind of keep the love going by dropping a raid on someone. I think someone else in the D&D category would be really, really cool. So let's refresh that and see who is online right now that we can go send some love over to. That's us. That's a vodcast.
We just sent it to ourselves.
Yes, raid guys. If you've never seen Exploding Dice, go check them out. They're doing all right about now. No, let's see who's really doing something cool here. Vodcast. What is this? Everyone's got a vodcast. I don't know. You know what? I think we're gonna check out these guys, because these guys are playing some Tales from the Loop, and they are probably going to appreciate the.
Oh my god, that game is so much fun. It's ridiculous how much fun it is.
Let's find out. We're going to go drop the love onto them. We're going to go smash their shit with a raid. So here's the thing. I'm going to drop the raid command in chat, and I want you guys to... The first thing I'm going to do is drop the bot command, and you guys are going to copy the message, the exploding dice and all the emotes that it says, and then we're going to do the raid, and then you guys are all going to jump in. So here we go. No more thank you at outro screen, so because of the raid thing. So I'll just say thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you guys for hanging out. I will see you at 10 o'clock for Mouse Guard. And once again, a huge thank you to my panel. You guys have been amazing. We will see you next time. Thank you for watching. But as always, don't let Dice Thulu get his tentacles on you, because he gets very, very handsy when he does. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
voting dice. Regardless,
It better not be to hurt the poor wolf.
Corvin's gonna take a gun and shoot the. No, he's not gonna. Corvin's